Good day, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us. And we have, for the first time in almost a year, For the Record Swanton Today Show. Very happy to have three guests from Swanton Village. Swanton Village President Neil Spear.
Richard.
Swanton Village Manager Reg Beliveau.
Richard.
And Swanton
Thanks.
Village Trustee Chris Leach. Thanks for
Good
the
evening.
time, folks. Been a long time, but
Yeah.
welcome back. It's been a lot going on in the last year or so. Boy, Neil, where to start? I'll start with yourself, but boy, I guess a new year. I guess that was probably good news for most folks, but big question, village fared. How did the village fare with the pandemic? Still certainly not behind us. I guess some kind of encouraging signs with vaccines, but boy, it's been a long last year, I suspect.
Yes, it's been a slow year. As far as health-wise, I don't think the village and the town of Swanton have been in too bad a shape, but we did open softly our new Ace Hardware store in downtown,
Right.
and we have another new business, Bees on Broadway, which is about leasing a little store next to the parts store, which is downtown.
Yeah.
And people have been out and about, not as much as they had in the past, but for the most part, we've been plodding along like everyone else in the state and the country. But and we've both Chris and I are running for our seats again. I run every year, and Chris is third up, and and the town is up for grab. The town select board has 3 or 4 seats that they're going to decide, and but things are, and we had good turnout for Christmas in the park. The decorations there, everything was socially distanced. The chamber is working on the car show this year, so hopefully, like everybody else is hoping, this COVID thing will be behind us by the middle of the year or so, whatever. But we're doing okay. So,
Yeah.
but
Now, the car show at this point, that's being planned, and hopefully will be happening this summer?
yes, we had a meeting last night, and Adam Paxman, who's chair of the chamber, said that it is scheduled for the last weekend in July.
Right.
They were hoping for the third weekend, but he said there's a conflict, so they're shooting for the last weekend in July for the car show this
And
year.
on a Saturday, I assume, as per...
On a Saturday, yes.
Well, that's a great weekend. I sure hope we get back to that weekend. Great car show in Swanton, and the last Sunday of July is usually, except for last year, the Jig in the Valley in East Fairfield, a really
Yes.
nice event. So
Yes, yep.
I'd love to think that weekend will come off as planned.
Yeah, so.
Reg, boy, a lot of issues. You feel that Swanton has come out of the pandemic, and again, still dealing with it, obviously, but in pretty good shape?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. I mean, I'm actually, back in March when, the governor made the declaration for the state of emergency, I mean, we had Chief Joey Stell is my assistant emergency management director for Swanton. And, back in 2018, I could deal with disasters, I can see it. There's a flooding. We dealt with that. This was a global pandemic, and this was not in my wheelhouse. So Joey asked Joey to step up and help manage the response for the village, the town of all of Swanton, and we got all the employees from the village and the town into the complex prior to all the socially distanced guidelines. Sat down and made a game plan, and actually pretty proud of all of my department heads, because after that meeting I went back to them and said, you folks run your organizations, you come back to me with a work schedule of how we're going to keep everybody safe and still be able to be functional as a community. And they came back that afternoon, and we ran with that work schedule for about a month and a half. Mm-hmm. People would rotate days of the week or week. And then I think it was the end of April, everybody was back into the office full time. So the summer was crazy because we had a late start with limited staffing, and then we did a lot of infrastructure work. We did a bunch of new sidewalks. We did a new street revamp with curbing in front of the Notch area. We did another water line rebuild off of Depot. We did some repaving. So the crews were really, really busy once we got up and running again.
So did the pandemic really not slow projects down that much then?
When with the guidelines, it was just, in the summertime, when it's that hot, it's like, keep your masks on when you're in the trucks, no more than 2. Roll the windows down if you got 2 in there, just for more circulation. So it was more of a work practices, work smarter kind of thing, And then when people had questions, like I said, Chief Stell was, he's a paramedic, and he was heading, has a lot of outreach as far as the state health department goes. So he was getting a lot of information. He helped keep us educated, helped, if we had questions, what if, he had the answers. And if he didn't have the answers, he knew where to get it for us. So put everybody at ease. There's still people that are very, very paranoid. It's when you can't see something, it's hard to combat it. And it's the unknown. I'd say the employees are better than 98% compliant 100% of the time. They get it and they respect each other, and that's the environment that we establish there in the village. And every time I'm out and about, I always wear my mask because my purpose is to go out and see somebody or to see a project. Yeah. So, I've got a beard now. They didn't know I had a beard, and I have been growing it since October. But yeah, I think we're progressing well. The state of Vermont, when they gave our arrearages program for our utilities, we were able to help people that were in arrears get caught up on their utility bills. So that was a good incentive. And there's a lot of our elderly customers that aren't that computer savvy, and we were able to help them manage through the process. Yeah.
The village complex, municipal complex, has been closed to the public since it started. Still closed to the public.
Yeah, we've been. The town is still by appointment. The village is open by appointment, but we're part of VEPSA, Vermont Public Powers Authority, and we communicate on a weekly basis with all the other municipalities or under VEPSA's umbrella. And we talk about, how are you guys managing? How are you, handling the front office? How are you handling your everyday activities? So we do have collaboration with others and some insights. So best practices too, we share that within each municipality.
All right. This being, of course, Tuesday, Jan 26. I guess there was a village trustees meeting last night. So how many people are zooming in on the meetings? Or do you even, do you know?
4 to 6.
Yeah.
About 6, between 6 and 8 at the max. There's some of them came and had a few questions. One group had a presentation to make, and after that was finished, they left. But there was actually a better turnout than our regular meetings. So hopefully people want to be involved in their community. We've been preaching that for years. That come in, if don't complain. Come to us and complain instead of doing it on the media.
Social media, yeah.
That's one thing that's worked with the pandemic. There was a lot of controversy out there, discussion out there for a while, but I think having the Zoom available and that type of thing, it pulls people out to be involved, hopefully constructively. But because if you're not involved in your community, I don't think you've got much of a right to complain. But And if you think it should be improved, come and let us know what your thoughts are. But the Zoom meetings we started slow, but they're starting to work better now. Hopefully we can get back to regular meetings before too long.
But no set date to do that, still monitoring the
no.
situation?
No.
No.
So,
Chris, what's been, you're a pretty veteran village trustee. Just talk about the last, just kind of a pretty strange year, just, but I mean, village
Yeah,
life goes
well-
on and stuff. How did it affect you personally as one of the three trustees?
Well, I'm a retired engineer. I'm home anyway.
Yeah,
So we just kind of hunkered down, my wife and I, and but to me, things seem pretty normal. I mean, we're having our meetings, we're having our interconnections. COVID-19 has certainly changed and affect all of our lives. I mean, as Neil mentioned, in the village, we had a couple of restaurants. They were able to, do outsourced delivery, and the gymnasium, the gym company there,
Oh, the fitness place?
the fitness place is back open again and operating, which is wonderful. I mean, to see those people go. The soft opening of the Ace Hardware, which is a wonderful store. If you haven't been in there, you need to check it out. And people have been, pretty cooperative. Nobody coming down from Canada. The police chief mentioned the other night that they don't have a lot of stops because the traffic is somewhat less, but the large truck traffic is still popping through town every day. We've had studies that show trucks going east or west, maybe up to as many as 1,800 a day. That's a lot of trucks.
1,800, yeah, we've talked about that issue many times.
Yeah, I keep bringing it up, and we have a downtown scoping study that's going on. We have a meeting coming up here, and that's basically traffic downtown, and I'm hoping there'll be some really innovative ideas that'll come forth there. I mean, it's always been an issue down in what we call a square with the traffic and the cars, and there's long crosswalks that are dangerous with traffic rolling through at a high rate.
Folks have told me, I may correct me if I'm wrong, that percentage of truck traffic going through the village, something like 16%, is that?
Yeah.
Boy, it's just, that's just a ton of truck traffic.
Oh yeah, people trying to get into the post office on that little stretch of road that comes from First Street into the what we call a square is dangerous sometimes. Reg had a crosswalk signal put in, which definitely helps. Man, people do seem to adhere to it, which is really good. One of the things we've been trying to do and work with the post office is try to get a drive-up post office box where you can, from the left-hand side, from the driver's side of the car, you can deposit mail. Because you don't have to get out there in that real high traffic area. And the post office right now is under a lot of financial strain, and it's on their agenda, but it probably isn't going to happen immediately. But one of the things people should know about the mail, and the people that have spoke to me about that type of service, is that we forget that if you just leave your stamped envelopes in your mailbox, your letter carrier will pick them up and mail them for you. And that's something that a lot of people didn't realize, I think. So that's been a help. So the effect on the village, you don't see your neighbors much. People wave to each other. We don't talk a lot. I snowblowed the people's driveway on my street, and they don't come out to talk to me, but I get a box of cookies or something, so we're still thinking of each other. And we're lucky that people are able in Swanton at least to be able to still get to work. We haven't seen a big outage. And I also noticed that when we ask if people are having trouble paying their bills, there are people that are having trouble, obviously, but it hasn't been to a point where it's affected our ability to pay our bills.
So I know I think some communities around the state have given extensions on maybe property tax payments. Village didn't feel like it needed to do anything like that.
Well, we have, in individual cases that have come up,
Yeah.
we have given some leeway, but we don't try to step forward and give that opportunity to the general people. But it's not been a problem.
Yeah.
Like I said, Swanton's pretty lucky. People have been able to keep pretty much a normal life, other than the fact you're staying home. You don't really see as much traffic. It's probably part of the Canadian. It's not being able to come down. It's certainly part of it, but people are staying home.
Yeah. I guess that's not a bad thing to do. I know Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, I think, just today, again, urging Canadians in general, I guess, just to not do any unnecessary travel. Yeah. Sounds like Montreal's been hit very hard by this. I guess the border, they keep extending it month by month. I guess officially closed to like Feb 21, but boy, I can't imagine the border opening, for months. I mean, geez, we might do well to see it open later this year. We'll see how things go. So financially, what about the village, Neil? Is the village in terms of budget, you guys doing okay? Have you taken any financial hits or nothing out of the ordinary with all this?
No, actually, we were in better shape this year than we have been.
Really?
We just finalized the budget at our last meeting, and tax rate is set at 1.03. 1.38%.
increase,
and
Per percent increase?
Yeah.
per percent increase. And I was talking to our assistant manager, our CPA, who sets our budget up, Lynn Purdy, and she says the police department budget has been decreased some from what she proposed, because we got some federal funding for our PD, and so that was good news. And we had 3 retirees this year, and and we had good water for the power company. So we're not doing too bad. Things that increased were like insurances, but other than that, I think Reg could probably speak to that better than I can, but the budget looked pretty good, pretty stable. So.
Annual village meeting, March 2nd, the regular Vermont Town Meeting Day, Reg?
Yeah. So the informational meeting is what, Feb 20?
Week before, February 28th?
28th, I think it is.
27th or 28th.
Yeah. So we are going to do a joint meeting with the town again, but it'll be 2 separate buildings, and we'll Zoom together.
Yeah.
So between myself and our economic development coordinator, Elizabeth Nance, she'll coordinate the town side, and I'll coordinate the village side as far as doing the presentations and keeping track of everybody who logs in and stuff. So happy to say we're going to do another joint meeting, and it shows good collaboration between both the village and the town governments.
Have there been some joint meetings in the last year or so?
No, I mean, they utilized our complex because of the size of our complex.
Right.
Before we started limiting 10 and just going down again to, no meetings. I mean, they were doing their select board meetings at the complex. So we'd have a pretty rigorous cleaning process before and after each one of the meetings. We're not holding any more, public can't gather in there, for birthdays anymore, so we're not renting it out. But they decided to start doing it back at their town office, but we're holding ours, obviously, there in the auditorium. So the other thing that we did add, our old board room, that was a smaller room, we've turned that into a squad room for the police department. We just could not be COVID compliant with socially distancing for the police department and keep those officers safe. So when they had the stimulus for some modifications to workspace, we've done that for the PD. We also did some workspace modifications for the front office with plexiglass also. But, so yeah, I mean, Neil, to just add on to Neil's thing, yeah, for the most part, everybody was being very fiscally responsible, understanding the hardships that some people may be facing with the COVID, and held the line pretty tight on the budget.
I think, Rich, when I last left you, I think we were talking about relicensing Highgate Falls, the hydro. How's that coming along? You know, that's a pretty involved, not inexpensive process.
So we're we're ahead. So we went jointly, we're using the same FERC attorney, Paul Nolan out of Virginia. We've used Paul for almost as long as the hydro's been in existence, but we're doing joint studies with Enosburg Falls as well. Their license is due 1 year prior to us, and we're due afterwards. So we're ahead right now, about a year ahead of that process. We've done some studies last summer. We have a few more to do this year, and I just got a notification it'll be about another $200,000 to $300,000 worth of budget going into the relicensing this year.
Really?
So we're hoping to get it all complete under $500,000. But
Boy, it sounds like a lot of money.
it's incredibly insane, just the process and the steps that you have to go. To me, it's just ludicrous. I mean, if you're operating on a license that potentially, initially when you achieve your license, it's you have a lot of targets to meet, right? So it's aesthetics, it's water quality, it's fish and wildlife, all that other stuff. And if you're not continuously meeting that throughout the years, one would think that you should be questioned or make modifications during that process. Because I mean, for me, for one, being the village manager and responsible for the hydro, I would want to know if I'm infecting my environment. I want to know long before the 30 years are up. And so we're actually trying to be a beta site for how to relicense appropriately, where you don't have to spend $500,000 worth of ratepayers' money to relicense. So.
Wow. I know, boy, Swanton, you've had some, as I throw one of my, I've got another thing, don't have to move. I wasn't throwing that at you, in case you were wondering. In recent years, boy, Swanton has had some real serious flooding problems. I know Lake Champlain is very low now. Does that seem to be less of a concern at the moment with, can only assume the river's relatively low at this point?
Yeah, I mean, the river right now, it's in good shape. The ice is starting to form, obviously, but the snowpack wasn't there like it was, last year or 2018 around this time of year.
Yeah.
So, hopefully we're going to have a mild spring like we did last year as well. But yeah, we just pray that we don't get another episode like that in a twofer like we got.
Yeah, had some real tough times.
Yeah.
Another issue on my list here, when I last saw you folks, again, it seems like the state was not on just you folks, but just trying to get municipalities with wastewater facilities to reduce phosphorus. Is that issue still hanging over you?
Yeah, we just recently got a loan. We trying to think of like 3 years ago, I think it was St. Albans City had that done, had some contractors come in with 3 different prototypes, how to reduce phosphorus from our effluent. We just completed that process in November, I think it was, that we had 3 come in and did their testing. So we're just waiting right now on the engineer's results of those tests. So that is coming for the wastewater plant. There's also our land app up on Woods Hill where they're doing PFAS studies. PFAS is in PFAS, all of those chlorohydrates are in a lot of things that are, anti-stick. So your permanent press, your Kevlar, or not your Kevlars, but your Nomex, your, the wrappers that you put your McDonald's or your Burger King hamburgers on, that's got some of that in, so the cheese don't stick. So inherently, it is in us, so when you go to the bathroom, you're excreting some of that, into the wastewater. And eventually it gets, in the streams and whatever. But, just like radiation, there's background noise of that all around us.
Interesting.
So, I don't know where the heck I was going with that, to be honest with you. But anyway, yeah, we got to do that too. That's another wastewater hurdle that we got to overcome.
Yeah. Chris, it's been quiet. It seems like it was a very controversial issue for a while. The Swanton wind project, I'm just curious, is this the first time anybody's even asked you about that for a couple of years? Of course, that project seemed to have gone away.
When they decided to not do it, it did
Right.
sort of go away. But my love is our power plant. I mean, this is a real jewel for Swanton. I mean, the fact that we have the three aspects of electricity is generation, transmission, and distribution. We have that company, and we do it very well. And our rates are among the lowest in Vermont, and if not the lowest, and certainly
still not the lowest.
lowest in New England as well. Like so many other things, the engineering of generating and transmitting and distributing the power is changing somewhat, but it's known. But what drives me crazy is the politics.
Yeah.
All of the what we call distributed generation. That's all the individual windmills, solar. It's tough to keep up with that. I mean, it makes the amount of electricity that's available to the grid continually fluctuating, which is really hard to do. But we're not contemplating any rate increase to any great degree. I mean, that could change, but it's. I'm very impressed with the way we do this. Reg has done a good job of manning who we should have and keeping us on top of things, and we rely very heavily on VEPSA. I mean, I look at Vermont, and we have 10 or maybe 9 or 10 municipally owned power companies, 2 that are co-ops, and one that's the biggest one that's individually owned. Green Mountain Power is owned by a company in Canada, and they control 80% of the meters. But we're trying to do pretty well. It is always a challenge to understand what's going on and to keep, and our representatives in Montpelier, I keep a bug in their ear. Brian Savage especially has been very good to us at keeping us informed into what's going on. And and as I run again, I mean, people accuse me that of having been around since the dinosaurs were walking, but I really love doing it. And we have an interesting team of our trustees, and it's certainly not partisan at all. I mean, look at our team. We control 3 nonprofit businesses that are uniquely only funded by the ratepayers and owned by the taxpayers. That's pretty unique, and that's certainly not partisan. So it's just like sitting on the board of any other big company. I mean, we exchange around almost $9 million a year. That's a lot. That's a sizable little company.
Interesting. You're running for what number term, Chris?
I think this is my 10th 3-year term.
Wow, really? Boy, veteran. Must be one of the more veteran trustees, someone in that position in the state at this point.
Well, thank you. But I know I'm getting old, but I think I'm still pretty good. I do my homework. I know what's going on. As I mentioned, our team is unique. Eugene is a chemist, and he very much understands water and sewer those interactions of what's going on.
Jean
And,
LeBombard.
Yep, Gene LeBombard. And Neil and Adam are businessmen that know on top of what's going on there. And as a team, we function, we oversee each other. We're all responsible for everything, but we each have our areas that we pay more attention to keep everybody else up to tune.
Right.
And I think that's unique, and I think it works well. There are actually four of us, and I look forward to doing some more of that.
Good. Very good. Neil, probably maybe the biggest, again, the pandemic just dominating so many things. Phil certainly ran into some controversy last year with the art wall. Just a comment about that. Has that situation gone away at least for the time being, or will that come back? What's the story with that?
Yes, I'll comment on it. It has dissipated. The original problem had dissipated. There is a group that has regrouped and presented a different proposal to our board for display of art concerns. And we're talking with them now at this point to try to re-up some kind of a display area for artwork in the village and the town. And it's moving, and they met with us last night via Zoom, and they're supposed to meet with the town to get their input next week. I think the town's meeting is next week. So we're hoping to come to an agreement on some sort of display of artworks again. But we want a little stricter regulations on it than that were non-existent basically, and it led to the controversy last spring, and it was not a good time for any of it, and it wasn't a display of how the Swanton community acts, and it was it hurt us a lot, and we're hoping to move forward this spring with this. So.
Did that pretty much come out of the blue? Did anybody see any controversy coming? Did that just...
That's a long story, and I'd rather not get into it.
Yeah.
That's okay.
But there were two different opinions, and whether the pandemic contributed to it or not, people were frustrated, and it was going on nationwide at that point, and it overflowed, and the minds that were involved were not open. I don't believe so, but we've moved forward from that.
A subject you're probably happier to talk about, Swanton Enhancement Project, going back a number of years, but do you feel there's still momentum from that visit and I know different committees and task forces that were formed? Neil or Renge?
The Swan Enhancement movement is moving at it. The most active leg of it, or task force, is the Economic Development Committee, and Mrs. Debbie Winters is chairing that, and Rise Vermont's representative Betsy Fournier is co-chairing that, and they're the most active group of the task force, and they're looking at improving our parks this spring. They've had meetings with us, the trustees, and I believe the town has met with them. The village has put money in our budget for improvements to the parks. Whether it's going to be enough to satisfy a lot of people, I'm not sure, but it's a start. And these people are really involved in the community, and they're looking to improve it, which without controversy, which is what we're looking for too. But the Marble Mill Park needs, the Rise Vermont helped with that. They just completed a study for proposals of improvements for Marble Mill Park.
I was about to ask you about Marble Mill.
And that is moving forward. Of course, it's a lot slower than it could have been. It could have been taken care of by now, but and improvements to the ball field, the McQuam Beach, which the village owns, and so any other parks that, well, we have the downtown park, of course, and they're looking to move together to improve that, and that's a positive note. There's some positive things going on beyond this pandemic and the depression that goes along with it, and we're hoping that that prevails. And a few other positive notes that we'd like to talk about, or not talk about, but state anyway. The old Carroll concrete plant has been taken down right next to the village office, and we have some proposals for a welcome center in there for that. It's still in the infancy stage, but the possibility of a welcome center. We're working with Northwest Regional Tim Smith on that, and the village has recently purchased the old Riviera Hotel, and that was no taxpayer money, by the way. That was some funds that were left over from our agreement with when we sold the old high school building behind the town clerk's office. There was some funds that we could reinvest in the community, and we used that to get a hold of the Riviera Hotel property. And we plan on moving ahead with the brownfields issues in that building to clean up the site and for further improvement. And we're working with regional planning for funding for those studies and the cleanup, Northwest Regional Planning. And what else was I going to say besides the Riviera or the parks? But there's a lot of smaller positive things that are going on, and I believe we'll be coming together when the smoke clears here. So
yeah, hopefully later this year. So the roof will be, what's left of it will be knocked down.
I believe that would probably be the plan, but we've got to get the brownfield studies done, have a clean.
So that's an issue at that site also.
Yeah, you got to have. I can't remember what the term was, but you got to have basically a clean bill of health for the property for an investor to want to come in and take it over. Really? So that work is getting done. Elizabeth's helping with that as well. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good positive things. The parks will have some part-time employees again this summer working there. If the two people that I'm hoping will show up, that'll be phenomenal. We'll get some activities there. But with Rise Vermont and having such a great community partner like that, interested in what we do in Swanton, it just makes a lot of the heavy lifting a lot less burdensome. They look for grants and they ask, hey, can we apply for this? There's no match. Yes, go ahead. There is a match, but it's in kind. Yes, go ahead. So, I mean, they're very energetic with Debbie and Winters and Betsy Fournier as chairs of the SEP. I mean, they're very energetic, and sometimes, it's overwhelming because they throw a lot of ideas at you, but when you're trying to run everything else, out of respect for them and their due diligence, I mean, you got to make the time and move stuff ahead.
Debbie Winters, of course, was, I think, the key person with the new playground by the school.
Yeah. So, I mean, if it wasn't for the COVID, I think we would be firing on all 8 cylinders. Really? I mean, we've been a lot of stuff happening. We were just on the cusp, and then all of a sudden, you pull the horses back and have to slow it down a little bit. And manage.
Is it clear what you'd like to do to Marble Mill Park?
There was a plan that was developed. It was very pricey for what we got. So it's we're going to break down in phases. So the first phase, what we're trying to do is modify or improve the entrance to it. So it would be like, if you understand where Marble Mill is, it's down on that hill. So we need to improve the access to that and the visibility to the access. So we're working on that. We're going to be working on trimming up the banks with all the, the nuisance vegetation that's there. We're also going to try to improve the river frontage. So, trim the trees up so you have good visibility. And hopefully that we're going to be able to put in some modifications to the tennis courts to make them more flood resilient, because that is a floodplain, and it, we proved a few years ago that it floods pretty high.
There's a boat access bridge just almost across the river there.
There on Goose Point, but on this side there's also a Canoe Portage that was put in. I believe Ron helped get that grant for the Northern Forest Canoe Trail people, and they install that. So there's a lot of irons, and just trying to keep them all organized and stuff. It takes up quite a bit of time, but it's pretty exciting still. I mean, it's you come into work in the morning, it's like, what else can we do here? And it's exciting to be in the position that I'm in.
Speaking of that area, the village and the Missisquoi, and anybody going after, again, there were some elements, I guess, in state government elsewhere urging you folks or proposing that you should take out the lower village dam. Is that the accurate term for the dam? Has that gone away? You're still kind of looking over your shoulder, wondering about some people going after that still?
I know the state did try to pass a bill that they would be overseeing unused dams, and they would. I'm trying to think of the right word to say, but basically they would force the hand of the owner to either repair it or take it down.
Oh, really?
So there is a movement going on, and I don't know where that bill wound up, or if it actually did get passed and snuck it in with something else. I don't know. I mean, that fell off my radar for a while.
When I last left you on that issue, I believe the village was giving at least some thought to seeing if there was some potential for some hydro potential out of that dam. Is that a kind of a dead issue now, or what's the story with that?
Well, unfortunately, the engineer that was working on that actually passed away.
Really?
Yeah, he had an unfortunate illness, and so, yeah, but he was making progress, and we just never refilled the seat. And the lawyer, Paul Nolan, that was helping us with that, now is focusing on the relicensing. So
I guess the short answer, Richard, is we haven't heard anything lately.
Yeah, nobody's coming after you lately.
So negative or otherwise, we haven't heard anything about it.
We
but
certainly
I think
have.
it's probably just in mothballs. They're when you get the right time frame, they'll be
waiting in the
at it
wings.
again. So
Right.
Waiting in the wings, yeah.
Chris, you wanted to comment?
Well, I
on
just
that?
want to say we certainly haven't tabled that idea. That what had happened was the cost of the type of generation that would have been there was prohibitive to the point that there wouldn't have been a payback. Return on investment, the old argument. But as the prices came down and the different developments and different ways of generating electricity have evolved, it's definitely not off the table, at least not in my scope.
Yeah.
Well,
And the idea that there could be a learning opportunity, a learning center, that we could generate enough electricity to at least power our streetlights was over there. Now there was an individual investor that we were trying to enhance for a good tax write-off for them, So it's still out there, but like Reg said, COVID just put a kibosh on a lot of things.
I mean, one would argue that, if they threw the incentives that they did towards solar, towards a hydro, low-head hydro facility, we probably would have been up and running. But then you've got two sides of the state that, one side wants renewables, but the other side doesn't want to put it on dams, I mean, we have been recognized as being 100% renewable.
Yeah.
So,
We talked before, Reg, going back in time, but it just seems like you feel that hydro kind of doesn't get the respect it should get with renewable energy.
Right.
Is that fair to Neil? Is that fair to say too? And why is that, do you think? Is it just people look at dams and they just don't like the look of the dam, or?
No, I think it's politics.
Yeah, imagine that.
So that's the main obstacle to any kind of progress
Yeah.
in any field. The cost ratio, like Chris was saying, the cost ratio of base power from renewables is phenomenal compared to hydro. And Hydro Quebec is a perfect example of it. They've got tons of electricity up there that they're just waiting to sell to the state of Vermont. When their base load is down, they don't have enough solar or wind to fulfill our demand. So, they seem to be making it more difficult for what hydro we do have to improve or maximize their power. So that's my take on it anyway. So.
Well, what people don't realize too is with solar power, those solar panels deteriorate over time. And you have to replace them. You don't renew them or refill them. But we've rebuilt the generators at our power plant multiple times at a fraction of the cost of what a new one would cost.
Yeah, each one of those.
So that's a really good thing. And another thing is energy storage. The greatest battery in the whole world is the water behind our pond. You know, I mean, it's just sitting there like electricity, just waiting to be turned on. It's fantastic. And with solar and with wind, the wind's got to blow and the sun's got to shine. But the water, you just turn it on and you make electricity.
Yeah, to Chris's point, I mean, our units, I think, what is it, 1932, 56, I think one's at 1928, each in a 1991 and a 2011. All of those older units are still running to nameplate.
Really?
So if it said back when we installed it, it was going to run 1.1 megawatt, today it's running 1.1 megawatt still. It's through the maintenance and the upkeep
Exactly.
of these units. So
They can be rebuilt almost infinitely number of times.
And how's the relatively new dam, how's that holding up in Highgate Falls?
You know, we did have some issues with it during the Halloween flooding. We had some issues with it, and we had some blisters that developed on the top of the dam. We had those repaired. I mean, basically, it's just like a big inner tube, right? So you get on it, buff it down, put a patch on it, put some glue, and off you go again. You know, it is that simple, but it's not that simple. But it's functioning well. We didn't get the full height that we anticipated, but the production like Neil said, that our production has been relatively steady, if not improved in some cases. We've had some turnover, retirees at the hydro plant, and they've actually sat down and looked at our efficiency curves and developed, basically a graph that says if you run these two together or run this one separately, how much CFS rolls through, how much water you use, and how much electricity you can produce. So it gives the operators more of the capabilities to make their choices throughout their shift, to say, I'm going to run this one because I don't have that much water and I can make more power with the water that I have, kind of thing. So we're trying to work smarter, put it that way.
Yeah, we're doing pretty well. It's a shame that the wholesale price of electricity is still very low. That's because there is so much of electricity available. What really helped us over the years is when we were able to make electricity when somebody else needed it and provide it and get paid for it. That's not so true as it is today. But we have other projects going on. We got a new water line going underneath the Missisquoi River in town. And The governor just announced, I think, $1 million to the Highgate Franklin Airport. And we last year ran water up to the MVU with the idea that we could, that would provide capacity that we could put water for the airport needs should they do some of the things Highgate wanted to do. So that's really encouraging and good for the area. And Swanton wants to be part of it.
Yeah, that's going to be crazy exciting when that happens.
Yeah, that was on my list also, so it looks like that's moving. And again, the plan, extending the runway to get like maybe FedEx planes, stuff like that, landing there? Is that the plan, or is that clear what the plan is?
So I think that's kind of like what the plan is, but I'm not for sure all of Highgate's plans or the airport's plans, but the part about Chris was mentioning our water and sewer lines going up there, I think the price tag was like $3-point-something million.
And they have been extended up there or not?
Have not yet. They put the fence around it, but they have not yet.
Okay.
But it sounds like it's very encouraging. The governor releasing, he made mention to Highgate Airport of $1 million, and I know Heidi from Highgate has been doing yeoman's work on trying to get some grants and other monies for that project. So basically what'll happen is we'll sell them the water and we'll do an O&M for them as well, and just help them manage the system. But it's so close to us, it would be very remiss of us not to want to work hand in hand with Highgate to get that up and running.
I mean, the airport is just barely in Highgate because some of MVU's territory or property is in Highgate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what did they figure? The analyst, of 1,700 jobs, whether directly or indirectly associated with that.
Wow.
And Canadian companies are just itching for warehouse space.
Right.
Tim Smith, touts that all the time, that if we had the space, I mean, we would be really booming. So with that said, too, to go back to how Swanton has been managing through COVID, a lot of the businesses that we have, they are, you consider them essential workers. So there's a lot of people that live in our area that work at the hospitals, work at the prisons, work at global foundries, farms, automotive, that kind of stuff. So our makeup in our area is full of a lot of essential workers. So
just made me think of another issue, the proposed sidewalk from MVU to the village limits. Any progress on that, Neil or Reg or Chris?
That was
That's the
study
towns.
is in the works, the feasibility study.
Yeah.
They're looking for options on how to accomplish it.
Yeah.
And that is moving forward, but pretty slow. Of course, having Interstate 89 in between the village and the school, the crosswalks there are a real issue that has to be resolved. And they're looking at different routes, either along 78 or behind 78 and coming in like a rear entrance to the school. Which one would be better, which one would be more financially reasonable. But we haven't had any decisions on that yet.
Yeah.
So
That's another one of those projects, a collaboration between the village and the town. I mean, they've invited us in to help brainstorm with them, and the ideas was the MVU sidewalk and also the McQuam Shore sidewalk as well. So they've invited us in, and we've been working with them and with the engineers. So, I believe they have the design. They're just trying to figure out the wetlands and the construction and all that other stuff for the MVU. And that was one that was a project that Dick Thompson, way back in years ago, that he wanted to make happen. And we just resurrected it just when I first came in 2011.
Right. Speaking of Dick Thompson, about every other week or so I'll walk over on the Richard Dick Thompson Fit and Healthy Rec Path, which of course destined to be the western terminus of the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail. I think a year ago the governor specifically mentioned that and putting some money, and I know there was some work on parts of it in Franklin County this past summer.
Oh, yeah.
I guess there's
Lots of work, yeah.
maybe lots of work.
It's,
I hope it's completed.
almost, it's completed from Swanton to Highgate. I don't know how far past Highgate, it's past the St. Albans Road, that intersection is done up there. So they made some progress on that this past year. So, and I think it's usable now because it's all stoned, and I don't know if it's paved or not, but.
No, they pulled all the construction signs up, so I think it's usable.
Yeah, it's usable.
Yeah.
So.
Right. I
And
know
what,
vandalism's been an issue, as it, a lot of municipalities can relate to that problem, but it seems like I'm on that fit and healthy rec path, like I said, probably every other week or so. But it seems like that's holding up pretty well, and I just love walking across the bridge. Of course, the transplanted bridge from West Milton, incredible, great effort by, I guess, Ron Kilburn in particular to pull that off. I guess that was a case that the folks in Milton had to say, hey, we have a bridge if anybody perchance is crazy enough to want it, and Ron said, yeah, we'll take it. But what a great move that was.
Yeah, yeah.
and that's been used a lot this year because the people, and the town of Swanton has improved the South River Street, and they put a guardrail in and a stripe. They repaved the South River Street to the depot, or beyond the depot. Put guardrail in and a stripe in there, so it's more, the walk space is more designated. And so there's been a lot of use there because I live right on South River Street.
That's your neighborhood, of course.
So there's a lot of people been using it, especially during the COVID crisis here.
Like I said, I make pretty good use of it myself. Chris, down to about 3 minutes or so. Anything you want to quickly talk about that we haven't brought up?
Well, I just wanted to mention the our police chief has been our COVID coordinator.
Leonard Joey
And
Scott,
we'll be offering the shots right at the village complex,
Oh, great.
which I think is cool. It's just like when you did with voting. You can walk in one door and go out the other. There'll be a place to sit and wait your 15 minutes.
And is that
Also,
starting as early as 2 days from now? If folks are watching us right now, is it starting this Thursday or?
well, I'm
Next week.
not
next
sure
week.
how quickly, but that is the plan.
Right.
I know, he told us that there was many people of the over 75 that have signed up.
Right.
They can go to Kinney's, or they'll be, one of the sites will be the Swanton complex.
That's great.
And we're so glad to be able to offer that.
Yeah. St. Albans making use of Collins Furley Sports Center.
Yep.
Now, speaking of police, one quick question. Roger Langevin, the Franklin County Sheriff, of course, big move by Roger. They'll be taking over coverage in St. Albans Town come July 1st. Any Swanton Village PD, of course, covers Swanton Town at this point. Has the Sheriff's Department, the Sheriff's Department used to do that coverage? I'm just wondering if Roger will take a stab at Swanton Town.
I think Chief Stell and Roger have been talking, and I don't think that'll happen. The town's pretty happy with how we're covering that area.
Okay. Neil, down to under 2 minutes. Anything you want to quickly talk about that we haven't mentioned?
I'd just like to say thank you to the people of Swanton community for staying together with us, and for the most part, we're still on a positive note, and we'll get through this, and hopefully we'll be able to improve our community even more than it has been already. And I look forward to meeting everyone face to face without the mask after this is over. So
you think the village has dealt with this pretty well?
Yes. So thank you, everyone, and stay in touch and stay involved. If you want some changes, come and see us. We're good listeners. So okay. Thank you.
You want 30 seconds to talk about it?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a special mention during the COVID that how the police department, the fire department, and local businesses did their parades, birthday parades. When everybody was in lockdown. So it was quite the community rally, and I rode along on a couple of them, and it was very exciting, very heartwarming. So special thanks to them for getting that done.
Very good. Well, hopefully this year hopefully things will start turning around. And it's a great thought to think we'll see a car show this summer and
Yeah.
just start getting back to normal at some point. Let's hope it goes that way, but sounds like communities are doing a pretty good job in a very difficult situation.
Yeah.
On that note, we'll call it a day. Thanks to Swanton Village Manager
Richard.
Rich Beliveau, Swanton Village President Neil Spear, Swanton Village Trustee Chris Leach. Thanks for your time.
Thank you,
Good
Richard.
luck with everything. Thanks for watching us on Northwest Access TV. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. Thanks.